Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Elise Buie here with the Maximum Mom podcast. And today I have my friend and coach, Melissa Shanahan, who I'm so grateful to have you on today. Thank you for joining us.
I am honored because I'm not that trifecta that's typically on this. So I'm so honored.
I know, but you know what? It's my podcast, so I get to do what I want.
Okay, that's perfect.
I told Joey, I was like, you're going to come on. You're going to be my first male. And I was like, you've got the entrepreneurship tripled. So you count.
Yes, yes, yes. That's so great.
Well, I love for us to start with the part that I think is probably my bias self. The most important part is your family. I love
Yeah.
to know what is the family part for you of this when you look at your mom self. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay, so I have a son who turns one or today, so turning one today.
No way.
And yeah, isn't that
Oh,
wild?
that's wild because I remember before he came.
I know. I know. Yeah, he is 1 year old. He is the coolest thing. The coolest thing. I just can't get over. There was like a while where I was like, oh, your tears are just hormones. And then now I'm like, no, we're past that. You're back to normal and you still just cry all the time because he's so amazing. And I
Is
feel
it?
so lucky.
Oh,
Yeah.
you are. I mean, one, he's so adorable, but don't they just every single day?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm just amazed by him. And I have trouble, which we were kind of talking about this before we got on, but I have trouble. It's a challenge for me to slow down. And he's forced that in some really beautiful ways this year. And yeah, I mean, this has been the hardest year of my entire life for sure. But it's been the best also. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's amazing. I mean, in a way, I know it's probably a little bit hard to see. I would think having this year, though, in COVID with a new baby,
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard, but also what a blessing. I
Yeah.
mean, to get to know your child in this, I mean, really deep, intimate way. I mean, you're around him all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I probably should think of it more like that. I think the hardest parts have been, just as it is for every single person that's on this podcast, is juggling all of it. And so yeah, it is a gift. It's a huge gift. I don't want to downplay that at all. And I feel really lucky that, I mean, the moms who have kids in school, that's a whole nother thing.
I mean,
They're superhuman to me.
they are, oh, they are like superhumans
Yeah.
on steroids with
Yeah.
a mix of like badass Ruth Bader Ginsburg, throw
Yes.
in like Serena Williams
Yes.
tenacity. I mean, they are wildly
Yeah.
superhuman.
Yes, I 100% agree. I am in awe.
Oh yeah.
I know humans will rise to what you hand them. I mean, you have two choices, and most of the time, humans will rise to it. And oftentimes, it's not pretty. And I, we've all been asked to do that in our own way in our own lives this
Oh
year.
yeah.
But those who have kids who need school and have been dealing with this, that's a whole different level that I mean, you can handle anything. If you can handle this year with kids in school, you're good.
You're,
Yeah.
you are good for sure.
Yeah. You got the stamp of warrior
I
on me.
mean, it's amazing. I mean, I say it all the time to my husband. I'll be like, oh, I heard about this woman today, who's doing this and this and navigating their new baby with cancer and they're in chemo and they're still remote learning with their three other children and working.
Right.
And I'm just like, what in the
Yeah.
world? The
Yeah.
ability of these people to do this is just, I mean, it's really beyond comprehension to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
well, I think women are showing up this year in a way that, I mean, just makes me so proud of women. I mean, who are just I mean, they're doing it, and they're also putting some boundaries down and bringing the men in and
Yes.
bringing the dads in to be like, "Yo,
Yeah.
dude, you know math as well as I do. Like,
Right.
sit down and do some math."
100%. Yes, yes, yes. I do think too, because now we're talking about this, it almost sounds like I'm like, this is the hardest year. And I do know that I have not had it as tough as it could be. I think part of what, if I could share what was running through my head or my heart, is that having a kid cracked me open in a way that I have not experienced before. I
Mhm.
feel very proficient at, because of my coaching background and all of that. I run models real quick in my head on circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. And I could see my part. I could see what I should flip. I could see all of that. But having a kid has opened up an emotional piece of me
Right.
that has not been cracked open. I haven't really allowed that to
Yeah.
happen. And I know that everybody listening to this that's a mom knows exactly what I'm talking about. But as a new mom, that was new. And
Yeah.
it's been such an adjustment to, it's almost like I was really struggling the first 6 months. I'm the kind of person that needs to make sense. Like all of us try to make sense of something, but this was looping in my head. How do I describe this experience? Because it's the hardest thing, probably, and quite honestly, the most painful thing I've ever experienced emotionally, and the most amazing thing I've ever experienced emotionally, all packed into one.
Right.
And I was talking to my coach, who I love, and she had this sentence. I was just telling Elise, I don't get a lot of one-on-one time with my coach. It's group, and you do the work, and sometimes you get some one-on-one time. And we were at a dinner. This was in July. We were at a dinner, socially distant, all of that. And I was trying to explain this to her, and she said, "No, no, it is so it's so painful because of how much you love him. It is so, it's just, she tied this thing together for me in a way that I hadn't been able to do on my own. Maybe it was lack of sleep, maybe it was hormones, maybe it was everything, but it was really helpful to have someone help me wrap my head around why I am at both ends of the extreme
Totally.
so much now. And it's given me this, I've developed, I feel like this is a superpower of moms, is that, especially if you have more than one kid, I can't even, like, this must be even more so, or there must be more breadth to this. But I have developed a capacity now that wasn't possible before I had him. That I have a capacity to feel many things and to keep going anyway. I have a capacity to hold space for a lot more than I could have before. And
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
it's
I think
pretty
that
mind blowing.
is the superpower of
Yeah.
moms. I
Yep.
mean, and moms, obviously I'm a mom of many, and when you have children that are all different, and have different needs, and sometimes like special needs or medical needs
Yeah.
or whatever, your
Yeah.
ability to hold that and them all
Yeah.
in on your spectrum where they need to be, because it's always different and
Right.
always moving,
Right.
like what one child needs or the emotional work that a child needs can vary differently at any given time to a different child. And it's amazing to me because
Yeah.
I'm at the flip side where I'm almost at my empty nest time, and I see the capacity now that has grown in me over the last 25, 26 years.
Yeah.
And now that my kids are more out of the house, I'm like growing, creating, building now in like spades, because I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
check out the capacity that I
Right.
have now. I'm like,
Right.
so I'm so freed up. It's been fascinating to me to see just how much of me was put into parenting,
Right.
and how, and I'm not begrudging it at all. It needs to be, and it's a huge responsibility, I
Yeah.
think. And
Yeah.
and I think it's the most amazing responsibility as a human, for me at least, to be able to help maximize another human, you
Yeah.
know, to get this
Yeah.
human in your life. And in my mind, my job is to maximize that human to be their own very individualistic,
Yes.
free thinking, always learning, kind, compassionate human who has their own passions, goals, and whatever, but that aren't mirroring mine, but that are, allowing them to come into their own. And that caused me to grow a lot. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard, I think, when your child maybe goes in a way and you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right.
But you
Yes.
can't be like that. You need to be like, cool,
Allow
this is
them to.
awesome that you're exploring this, and
Yes.
more power to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
It,
I intellectually know and believe that my job is to foster the development of him at his just fully him.
yeah,
And I don't know what that is. And there's probably, just like you said, there's going to be things where I'm like, wait, come back. You should go left. Don't go right. Yeah. but
absolutely. Yeah,
but
it's
it's but it,
fascinating.
understanding something intellectually and then actually experiencing is two totally different things. And I do, so it's almost like, oh wow, I wonder what that's, I think I know what it's going to be like, but you, until you're, that's like reading a book on how to swim. You got to get in the pool, and
Totally.
there's going to be a point I'm in the pool and I'm thinking, oh, this is
Exactly.
what I said I wouldn't do. This is how I said I would handle this. We're here, we're in it. So I know that it's all coming. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll never forget sitting in the parking lot in a car with my freshman son who was going to this very fancy private school in Seattle. It's like 25% of them go to Ivy League schools. And he just looks at me and he goes, I have no interest in any of that. He goes, I am going to be the best lineman in the state of Washington. He's like, that is my goal. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, fair enough. And then I was like, well, what does that mean to you, like from an academic standpoint? And he was like, well, I'm going to have to do something because they kind of make you do something to play every week. So that's what I'll be doing. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. But, really battling that parent thing of, oh no, you know, my child becomes a lawyer, doctor, or engineer. Of course,
Right.
you need to make, A's and B's. And of course, you should be striving to do this. And it
Right.
was really eye opening to have a 14-year-old boy really kind of put me to the test
Well,
of,
it sounds like he had such a sense of clarity.
oh, he
Yeah.
so did. I mean, and
Yeah.
he was just like, this is what I'm doing. This
Yeah.
is what matters to me. And this is what is happening. And it was
Yep.
fascinating to watch that because then he ended up in a bad car accident between his sophomore and junior year, ended up in a boarding school and worked his tail off to get back to football. That
Yeah.
was what was driving him even then. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating because I really did embrace that. This is what motivates this child.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with it, whether I think it's going to be, carry over to a job, none of that mattered. I mean, what
Right.
mattered was this was what was going to get him up every morning. This is what was going to get him to math class, was the fact that he wanted to play every Friday night.
Mm.
And it's really interesting to really have to get over yourself, you know
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a parent, and be like, what I think really isn't going to matter if it's not what's motivating him. I mean,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
think all I want about good grades, but
Right. Right.
it
Right.
doesn't matter.
So yeah, I was in awe of moms before I had a child, but now that I have a child, you know, I just, women are incredible. Women
Incredible.
are incredible. Women without kids, just women are incredible. And I just see a new side now that I
Right.
couldn't have seen before. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in awe.
It is. I mean, when I had my first daughter, I'm adopted. So my first child was the first human that I was biologically connected to that I knew. And
Wow.
was that ever the most, like, I mean, I was awash with emotion when
Oh
I laid
yeah.
there in the hospital with this baby. And I was like, she is the only human in this universe that I am biologically connected to. And it was so powerful to me. I mean, I had the hardest time like getting over it and just being like, okay, it's okay. You're not gonna like mess this up, or
Right.
it was just this really powerful thing. And yeah,
Oh,
it's hard to explain the
Yeah.
crazy things that happen when
Yeah.
you do have a
It
child.
is. That's a good point, which by the way, I'm so glad that I mean, now you have multiple kids. I don't even remember how many you have, but you have multiple kids. And you're like, I mean, you're I'm so glad you did. How lucky those kids, I mean, how lucky you are that they're your kids. I'm sure of that. I don't know your children, but how lucky that they get to have you as a mom. I mean, you are such a strong example of what's possible and what I don't know. I just think it's so great. To your point though, when you're talking about those quiet moments when you're just trying to wrap your head around something that may not even to somebody else and be like, huh, like
Yeah.
that doesn't really, but to you, you're like, no, I've got to like figure this out. Those things are the hardest to put into words because there's such a deep experience
Oh yeah.
that sometimes there isn't words for. And so
No.
then you're just left with the experience. There aren't going to be words to be able to sum it up. And that is, I don't know, it's just quite amazing.
And
I
a lot of raw emotion. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the thing I found that first year of parenting was just some really raw emotion of, realizing that there was so much I didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
we kind of
Yeah.
spent our whole life thinking, you know what I mean? We go through school, graduate school, we're like, oh, we know this, we do well at this. And then all of a sudden you have a child screaming at you for 10 hours or whatever. And you're
Right.
like, excuse me, this is not how this is supposed to roll.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There was something you just said that made me think, oh, it just left me.
Don't
It'll
you
come
love
back.
that? See, that's your mom brain.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's true. Um, oh my gosh, it was something that you said that I thought was well, it'll come back. But yeah, just the raw emotion. You were talking about raw emotion. Oh, this isn't good for live interviews, is it? I don't know.
It happens. It just happens. Well, tell us now. We're going to move away from our family side. Tell us a little bit about what you do, your entrepreneur side. And I know you're not a lawyer, and you
Yeah,
mentioned that already, but
yeah,
you work with us lawyers a lot.
yeah.
So I think you should have a pseudo law degree just for putting up with us.
I have toyed for fleeting moments, and then I like no. Like, should you just go to law school? I feel like maybe that could help in some way. You should, because I don't want to be a lawyer. I just like want to be in your heads, and I want to be able to call BS on all the
Right.
excuses that come up. That's what I really want. um, uh, so I have Velocity Work is my company, and we work with law firm owners helping them grow on their terms. So whatever that means for them. My background is heavy in coaching for productivity. I've run the gamut. I got into coaching in 2007 and was certified in 2008 and have been running with it since then. But I do have a background in consulting for private practice owners, mostly dentists and doctors at a firm that I worked for. And when I left that firm very intentionally to do my own thing, I decided to choose attorneys instead of dentists and doctors. I had reasons for that, which I'm happy to go into if we want to. And I knew that the crossover was so similar in all the things that I've had to help owners with prior. It applies
Right.
here. Different flavor, but same thing. So that's what I started doing, and things have morphed over time. I used to only work one-on-one with people, and now we've opened things up where we don't just have to be one-on-one with people, and kind of gives law firm owners who are a little earlier on their journey a chance to get ahead with some of the material, but
Right.
not work one-on-one. So yeah, it's been super fun, super eye-opening, and to go back to the mom, woman, entrepreneur thing, I I'm just really proud. Oh, I know what I was going to say to you earlier, but I'm really proud of this last year. And I think all of us should be, no matter how it ended.
Right.
if you think back to this, kind of goes back to the Mean Girl episode that you did, because we all just keep trucking. We don't, if you are an entrepreneur and if you are doing your own thing and you are a mom and you are juggling all these things, it's very likely that you don't stop to acknowledge and celebrate what the progress that you've made and how far you've come. And when I look back at 2020, I don't have much feeling about it. I'm proud, of course, but I don't, that's about it. Proud, okay, on to the next thing. But if
Right.
I look back on 2020 as if I'm looking at um someone I really adore, like a really close friend or my niece, or if I could see her making all the moves and doing all the things in 2020, all of a sudden my heart melts and I just realize what a good job. Like really pat I would want to give her a hug and I would want to tell her like you did amazing. Like just celebrate
Right.
you. But we don't do that for ourselves. We don't have that same view for ourselves. And that's a shame because it's really easy to just keep trucking and keep creating and keep growing everything, firm, family, everything without stopping. And it's almost like at some point, I think I'm catching myself early. Because I think if I were to keep going on to the next thing, you would get to this place where you would almost resent everything you've created because you've just built something bigger and you didn't stop to actually be present with it and actually celebrate it. And no one else is going to probably give you that hug and pat on the back like you would for your niece or whoever we are responsible for doing that for ourselves, and it's
Right.
not second nature. So
Well, and I
yeah.
think you mentioned and you bring up such a good point. If we're not stopping and being grateful and proud of what we've accomplished, when are we evaluating
Mhm.
whether we want to keep going in that same direction or not?
Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah.
I find, I mean, for me, it's important for me. I try so hard to do it monthly to really, I set these goals at the beginning of every month. I mean, like, a religion. And then at the end of every month, I compare, like, did I meet them? Did I not meet them? And then at the bottom, I have this little sheet I use. And at the bottom, it says, are you still going in the right direction?
Mm.
Because you know how you set goals often at the beginning of a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say, last year was a perfect example of the goals that I set in December of 2019 were not applicable in April 2019. I had
Right.
to make real changes.
Yeah.
And I think if I didn't have that reminder, I mean, I guess I'm kind of slow on the uptake. I need that monthly,
Yeah.
are you going in the right direction? Because
Yeah.
it helps me to really reevaluate every month. Is this where I should be going? Have there been
Yeah.
any changes? And it gives me permission to change direction,
Yeah.
because
Totally. Yeah.
sometimes I think we get in our minds what our goals are, and we almost feel like we're failing if we're changing direction.
Yeah.
And I think that, and when you said at the beginning of this show, and I want to talk to you more about this, how you help law firm owners grow in whatever way is meaningful to them.
Yeah.
So many coaches do not have that mindset.
Mm.
They're all about having you grow to grow. And I
Right.
don't know that growing to grow is necessarily what the goal is for everyone. I
No.
mean, some people are not growing specifically to have more time. They might have a child at home, they're addressing, schooling issues, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. But I mean, having that support in your coach to allow you to grow based on what the owner's goals are, that is priceless.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think otherwise we get ourselves into, to put it mildly, a pickle, because you
Yeah,
you grow yourself into something you don't want to do anymore.
exactly.
It happens all the time, and it happens so easily and kind of innocently. We're just doing the best we can. We keep trucking. Of course we want more new clients. You just pile things on, and of course you grow, and there probably is more money, but you're not healthier and you're not enjoying things and you're not present and you're probably short with people around you and you're probably like your life quality isn't probably what you would want, you know?
Right.
But I do think, uh, and I've seen enough examples of it that I know it's possible to grow and at the same time have better quality of life.
Mhm.
And I think people think that's a pipe dream. I think they think, well, I only want to grow till here because if I keep growing, then that means I'm not going to have time and I'm not going to
Mm.
be able to do all these things. And that is not true. What people think is a pipe dream actually is not a pipe dream. It just requires that you're very intentional
Very
and that
intentional.
you, like you said, I love how you said that. I love that question. Am I going in the right direction? Like everything we do at Velocity Work is centered around annual planning and quarterly planning. And that's your time to lift your head and evaluate and make decisions for the next quarter. And, you
Right.
know, for the year, but you don't just like plow through the year. You keep asking yourself and checking in and reviewing and all of that. And I think that I heard a coach recently. I could not believe this. I wanted to reach to the microphone and shake this person, not because I don't like them, because I'm just like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. She's a coach. And she said, I used to want to hit $1 million, but I'm not, that is not my goal because that would mean I have to less time with my kids and less time with my family. And I was like, don't tell your audience that. That's not true. You know, I just think it's easy to believe that. But
Right.
I guess I feel really blessed and lucky. I've seen plenty of examples of people who have grown ridiculously grown beyond their wildest dreams and they got more time they know what to do with. They're good.
Right.
And so it's like it's just what you've seen, I guess, as
Yeah.
models is really helpful. And maybe that person just hasn't had those models that I've had the um, privilege of seeing. But
Right.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm on a rant. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But I mean, I think that is really important to drill down on the issue of what is possible. Kind of like what you were talking about. You might want to go to law school just so you can call BS on the stuff we say.
Right.
And that's kind of part of that.
Yeah.
Like when people say things like, oh no, I'm not going to, get past $1 million. Like if I just get there, I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
need this or I don't need that. And a lot of that is BS.
Yeah.
That's us putting limits, I think,
Yes.
on ourselves that
Yes.
are not necessarily based in anything. They're just based in almost like a mythology around what it is or what it isn't.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's
true.
real important to have a coach who will push on those and say, like, no,
Yeah.
like, let's explore that.
Yeah.
Where does this thought come from? And
Right.
when you were talking about your whole, your model, like the circumstances, feelings, thoughts, action, results, I mean, do you help your clients understand that model?
Oh yeah. I think they secretly hate it, but they probably secretly love it. I don't know. Because it is the thing that unlocks everything else. So
Everything.
I know what I am going to make a more concerted effort to do this year is to talk to the group, the membership community that I have. I want to teach them about it, and because it lifts the lid off of everything.
Does.
So I'm going to do that this year. But with private clients or even members that hire me for one-on-one sessions, we don't have a call without talking about, because it forces you to own your results,
Yep.
every action you take, every emotion that you're feeling, and every thought that you're thinking. And it doesn't mean that it always has to be positive Polly. Like that's not the goal, is to always feel
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Like, but the
No.
goal is to understand that you do create your own internal emotional experience. It's not, somebody else can't do that. So even though sometimes I say sentences like this sort of flippantly, he is annoying the hell out of me or whatever we would say. Really, truly, if you really want to get down to it, that's impossible.
Exactly.
He is doing something. your thoughts about him are creating an emotion inside of you. They're creating frustration or irritation. So what is your perspective on that human doing that thing? And so that's a super overly simplified way to explain how you could use this, but owning it instead of saying, don't give your power to your team member that's
Exactly.
frustrating you. Or all
That, I mean, to me, it is understanding that model and understanding how not to give your power away. But even more important than that to me, to not give my sense of well being to another person.
exactly.
Like, why
Exactly.
would I want to do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it is interesting. Recently, my son, who's 23, I'm trying to think how old he is. He's 23, and he was really struggling with his employer. So I just, did the probably not so cool mom thing, and I literally walked him through that whole thing. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, you might not want to hear this, but I'm like, I'm gonna just share it with you anyway. And I
Yeah.
really walked him through, and he was just like, okay, mom, where did this woo woo stuff come from?
Right.
So then I gave him some books to read so he didn't think I was just like, off on my, crazy world in my own head. And it was interesting because I do think it allows me, and I don't know if he's totally following it, but I see some
Mhm.
real instances where he'll say, oh yeah, well, I'm not going to let that person take me down that rabbit hole. Or he'll say things
Yeah.
like, well, I've started running more to address how I was, feeling or coping. And I was like, well, you seem to
Yeah.
me that is a win for a
That is.
20s kid.
What a
And
gift.
I mean, imagine, I know for me, if I had learned that model at
Oh,
like 20, I mean, woohoo, my whole
yeah.
life would have looked different if
Yes.
I did not continually give away my well being
I
to
know.
other people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. High school for me was
Oh,
painful. Like, I think that if I had that, it wouldn't have fixed everything, but it just would have helped me see something from real truth
totally.
instead of this story that I was just going off of and that you buy
Well,
into.
and I found even as a parent, I mean, I didn't have the model in my head, but I know like with my first child, when she would be up crying and stuff, I mean, I would get really wrapped around the axle about it, trying
Mhm.
to get her back to bed or whatever. By the time the second one came along, I was like, this is the most futile, ridiculous thing that I do. And I didn't know what other mothers were doing, but I was like, I am not doing that anymore. I'm like, I am going to entertain myself doing something while this child is up. I mean, I became like the soap opera diva. I would just tape soap operas and watch them.
Yeah.
I mean, this obviously was a long time ago, but I
But
mean, and
I totally get it.
I
Yeah.
would just be as happy as a clam. And I'm like,
Yeah.
here we are up nursing, doing whatever. And I just stopped the fight. There
Yeah.
was no more wrestling a baby to sleep. And I thought, I'll get to sleep sometime. Like, I'm just not even going to worry about it. And it revolutionized my parents.
Yeah.
And I mean, then, kid after that and kid after that, like, I was just, I was pretty joyful, even when they
Yeah.
were up in the middle of the night, because I figured out how to make that time be a positive time and really
Right.
flip that into a
Yes.
negative thing to a how cool that I get all this just quality time with this child, and just with myself,
Yeah.
being able to think. I would listen to books. I mean, back then we had like a Sony CD player, and I'd listen to
Yeah.
books on CD. I mean, and just be as happy as a clam.
Yeah. There's a coaching tool I learned from the first coach certification that I went through called bag it, barter it, or better it. If there's something you have to do, either, or there's something on your to do list, you either bag it, like get rid of it totally, barter it, delegate it, hire it out, whatever, barter it, or better it and find a way. So that's, you bettered it.
Yeah,
You just turned on something that you made that time better, right? Like,
right.
or more fun, or something. So yeah, that's so interesting. That is definitely because you can't delegate that. Well, I mean, I guess
Well,
maybe you can now.
yeah, maybe. Well, and it's funny because I have a tool that's kind of similar. It's do it, delegate it, or delete it. And that's for
Yes.
my emails. Like, you do the thing, or I
Yes.
delegate it, or I delete it. Like,
Did
there's
you learn
no,
that from Susan Hyatt?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah, because that's so Susan and I were in the same. That's the best. We're all back then we were all trying to find our own way of saying things.
Right.
I liked her 3 Ds better than the 3 Bs. I think it was
Yeah.
Susan. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's been really helpful to me because I
Mhm.
never look at an email twice. I mean, it's bad though sometimes because I'm like, sorry, did my do it, delegate, or delete it. So if you don't give
Yes.
me a quick thing, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to end up either delegating or deleting because I'm lost once I'm
Right.
a paragraph in.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. That's so funny. I do think I walk through people just what each thing
Yes,
means so people know what we're talking about?
absolutely.
Okay. C stands for, so CTFAR is what Elise and I keep talking about. C stands for circumstances. Those are facts. Those are things that happen. It's just the way of it.
Like
So
COVID.
no control. Yeah, you have no control in the C line. We call that the C line. T stands for thoughts. You have a thought about the circumstance. It's a recognizing what that is. So another way, if thought feels a little hard to wrap your head around, no pun intended. It's like a sentence in your mind that exists about the circumstance. It's your opinion about the circumstance. Sometimes it feels like a fact though, so I hesitate to use the word opinion. But that's a thought line. The F line, F stands for feeling. That's one word, emotion. And that is always created by your perspective. It's always created by what you're thinking. And so if you think a low quality thought, you're going to have an emotion that probably doesn't feel so hot. If you think a really high quality thought, a deliberate, intentional thought, you curate your own internal experience. And so that's an emotion, one word. And then actions and results are the last two lines. So the A line and the R line. Actions are the things, the behavior you display in the world. And then R is the results that you create because of the actions you took, and et cetera, et cetera. So what's interesting is your thought about the circumstance creates your feeling state. And
Right.
from that feeling state, you take a very specific kind of action. And from those actions will get you a certain kind of result. And people try to fix their emotions through their action line most of the time. And it doesn't work. It will backfire. It may work short term or temporarily, but if you don't change your thoughts and your perspective and your opinion about the thoughts, the sentences in your mind, you're screwed. You're always going to come back to that default emotion that you don't
Right.
like. You have to change your thinking. So that's a really simplified version, but it's so cool because you can use this to create whatever you want. You
It's
can
life
plug in.
altering.
It's awesome. You can
It
plug
is.
whatever you want in the result line, for example. You want to create $1 million, put that in the R line and work backwards. What do you need to think and feel and do in order to create that? It's not just a list of actions. It has to be you too, which is the thinking and feeling. It's so cool. You can do a lot with the model.
It's just I think it is the most life altering thing I've ever learned,
Yeah,
actually. I mean,
I don't
and
disagree.
and to help you think that, I mean, even when I find I'm thinking something and I'll catch myself, I'll be like, well, that was a really unproductive thought, Elise. And
Right.
so then I literally like have to sit down and I'm like, okay, let's think about, I mean, being the good lawyer that I am, I think about all the possible thoughts that I could have.
Right. Yeah.
And then I literally kind of have to direct myself sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if you go this line, this is kind of going to hand you over here. I'm like, and that's
Yes.
not where you want to be. So let's go back and let's start over here and
Oh yeah.
flip that thought. And then let's go down this path. And sometimes it's hard because you know what I mean? Sometimes that's not necessarily your very first thought. And
Right.
so you kind of feel a little inauthentic almost because you're purposefully choosing a different thought. But I
Yes.
have found over time, I mean, there are many things I've actually changed my initial thought on through practice.
Yes.
And and
Definitely.
now I can see circumstances like COVID as being an example. I mean, initially I was, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How's the firm going to make it? How am I going to pay everyone? And then I kind of went down a rabbit hole, figured all that out. And then I went back and said, okay, now COVID is an opportunity for me to double down and we are going to thrive through this. And then I
Yes.
went down that rabbit hole. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
But because I was able to go down that negative rabbit hole first And I do this a lot where I will play out my negative, if I have a
Oh,
negative thought, and I'll
same.
play it all the way down to its result so
Yes.
that I can get my head around it and then put it aside.
That's the smartest thing to do because it's
Really?
like
I
that's
didn't
what we
even know.
call in the coaching world, there's unintentional models and intentional models. And you always have to start with your unintentional, like default. You always play it all the way through. You do it, even if you're like, yeah, I know where this ends up. No, fill in every line because
Right.
that is like understand the way of it. Understand, like get awareness on how all the things that stem from one sentence, you know? So,
Right.
and then just like what you said, you create your intentional model. What am I going to think on purpose? And
Yeah.
then feel on purpose and do on purpose. And what result am I creating on purpose? That is a totally different, um, it's so empowering
It
to,
is.
yeah, to flip it and know that you control your own experience. You can't control the world,
Oh gosh,
but you
no.
can control your experience of it and the results that you create. Yeah.
Yeah,
So cool.
it is. It's very empowering. I mean, and as a divorce attorney, I love explaining it
Mm,
to clients
yeah.
because talk about an amazing arena for somebody to be able to flip that thought and
Yeah.
learn to flip that thought of maybe, they're looking at divorce initially, they're the victim of a divorce, whereas maybe they need to look at it as an opportunity,
Yeah.
for what is going to happen moving forward. And I find that people can really understand that model. So I'm so glad you explained it to people
Oh,
because
yeah.
I
That's
think it's
actually
so
with
important.
relationships, I find it really useful because it's so easy. I think a lot of painful experiences happen in relationships because of our thoughts about the other person.
Oh,
And it's not them. And it's so easy to think that they are the problem.
right.
And when you take responsibility for how they make you feel, you create your own feeling states. And it's almost like the worst news that you have for people when you start to get into this, but it's the best news ever because it's
Exactly.
like they're responsible for how crappy they feel, and they don't really like, no, it's on that, it's because of
Right.
my husband or because of whatever. No, and so when you own that, it's so it's like, oh, like, it's
Yeah.
that where it's like, oh, so then I control the levers. I,
It,
that's a totally different game.
I
Yeah.
mean, literally, I mean, for me, it was so revolutionary because I went through a divorce and my ex was never great at paying child support or spousal maintenance. Like, and I was always going at him like, dude, we got a lot of kids, you need to pay your part. And he was always just like, well, I don't have the money or whatever. There's a million different things. But there was that same push and pull. And then when I learned this, I
Mm.
was like, wait a minute. I'm like, this is so not the way for me to spend the rest of my life. And so the circumstance was still the same, but I was able to completely change my thought. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the nicest thought, but I was like, I'm going to earn circles around this guy. Like,
Yeah.
he is giving me the greatest opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
And so I literally took that and have run with it.
Yeah.
And it's kind
That's
of
remarkable.
amazing to,
Yes.
because I don't feel any of that negativity or whatever. I mean, if anything, I'm like, sure, you can come stay at my house, or you want to borrow this, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
been super empowering to just, and it all started with that flip of a thought,
It changes your focus. You just get focused on the right stuff.
which is me. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like,
Yeah. It brings you back to yourself.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
mean, to me, that's, I'm the easiest person to fix because at least I have control over me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Even if I'm being
Yes.
a hot mess, I can acknowledge that and fix it. Whereas obviously I can't fix anything else. You know what
Right.
I mean? Outside of
Yes.
me.
Yeah. I definitely know what you mean. Yeah. That's so
It's
good.
amazing.
It is. And I mean, this is the stuff behind all the, I think attorneys, the reason I haven't explained it to groups yet is because I'm still trying to figure out the way that attorneys will hear me when I say thoughts and feelings. And a lot of people will, but there's a lot that are like tune you out as soon as you say that. They're like, no, let's focus on actions and results. I'm like, I'm getting there. That's what I'm doing.
Just patience.
I know. So I try to. It's like sometimes I take a back door to. I ask them the right questions. I know where I'm going with this because if you tell them up front what you're doing, it's almost like they don't want to plug in the same way. But all of this, that my point was, all of this matters when you're growing on your own terms. And because if this is how people, if you focus on actions and results and you don't focus on your thoughts and your feelings and your experience and the results that you want to create and why you want to create those results, like all of this is tied up in, you have models you're running all day long, whether you have an awareness to it or not. And so you might as well wake up to them, and you might as well get on board with if figuring out what you do want to create, and what do you need to think, and how do you need to feel, and what do you need to do to create that. There is an avenue, and I'm really passionate about helping people hit $1 million, hit $4 million, whatever they want, but doing it in a way that is aligned with making sure that they're always taking responsibility for themselves and they are creating their reality for themselves. And that looks different from firm owner to firm owner.
Absolutely.
And it's easy. That's why I have such an aversion to the word blueprint. It drives me batty because I'm like, there's no blueprint. If you want to grow for the sake of growing, maybe there's a blueprint, but yeah, it's just not gonna.
It doesn't work.
No.
Well, and I know because I've worked with a lot of different coaches through the years, and one of the struggles that I've had, everyone has tried to get me to pay my team less. I mean, this has been this like across the board.
Except for me, I did not do that.
I mean, people are all like, you need to pay your team less, and I'm always like, can y'all just please back off my team salary?
That's so funny.
But it's something that it matters to me on this
exactly
very personal level. And it often, I'm sure, comes from when I was a single mom trying to work, and I felt like I was working my tail off. I was away from my children, trying to pay for schooling, and my boss was taking all this money, and it felt really bad to me. It felt yucky. And I knew I never wanted to create that same thing. I wanted to create more of a situation that felt fair, and I could like really sit with someone and explain it. And I could show them, I could be very transparent about the profit, the expenses, their income, and really show them. And so it's been a real struggle because I have felt that people have a hard time with me having a different percentage model than is the blueprint percentage model. But it's like, it seems like I can decide what profit I want. Like that is absolutely within my power.
Yes, 100%. I think there's, the reason that you just hit the nail on the head. One of the reasons I don't like blueprints, and I just want to caution people to be very skeptical of the blueprint, right? Because you as an owner need to get very good at making calls, making decisions, and liking your reasons for them, and having your own back and going all in, period. And if you're listening to what someone else is telling you, you should think, these are the decisions you should make. You are outsourcing that skill that you need to develop. And so you're going to become a $2-3 million firm owner, and you don't have that ability or that skill to make decisions, big decisions, fast, and have your own back and go all in, not dip the toe, all in. And so what you're saying, that's a really good point, is that what I have known about you since I first knew you was that you had a percentage that a lot of consultants and coaches were like, no, you should get that down a little bit or whatever. And I really knew that was a non-negotiable, and you liked your reasons for it. I will never go up against an owner that has that stance. All right, let's move on. Right. That's it. You can create anything you want to create. Just because you have a percentage that seems ridiculous to someone else does not mean that your business is in trouble. trust me, clearly looking at you, things are all right. Like you are growing, and
Right.
that is a non-negotiable for you, and it doesn't have to be a different way. You made a decision, you went all in on it. It's a non-negotiable. Let's move. And you do that.
And
So I just
figure out
think
there's other things we can tweak. You know what I mean? There's other
totally
levers we can look at. And that's the thing.
100%.
I'm like, can we all just be a little more creative here? You know, it isn't just
Right.
one
Mhm.
thing. And obviously for us being virtual, that's a huge thing we can do
Yeah.
because we've been virtual forever. I don't pay real estate amounts.
Right.
So I can pay people more, or there's other things. And I also think people, there's cycles in life. When we look at being a mom, a
Mm.
business person, there are cycles in our lives where maybe at one point you do need more money in as profit. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
you are paying all these private school tuitions in college and you're
Right.
looking at things, and then maybe other times you're not. I mean, you
Right.
don't need as much in, and maybe that is a time to tweak things. And I guess that's, I like to be able to change and
Yeah.
make adjustments based on what I need and what
Yes.
my team needs at the time.
And the only
Like
way
in
you can do
COVID,
that is to lift your head for
and
you, it's every month, but every quarter, as an example,
absolutely.
evaluate, learn your lessons, make a plan for the next, however you're planning for it, right? Yeah. And so
Well, and
when
I
you do
think
that, you can adjust.
COVID provided such an opportunity, I think, for us to really learn about how we do need to lift our heads. Because if you kept your head down too much last year, I mean, there was trouble,
Yeah.
like you were missing some things.
Right.
And because
Right.
stuff has been happening
It
in
was kind of a
20.
forced, it's probably, I think, I know I don't like wish this ever to happen again. And I would, but there's some silver linings. And I think most people probably feel that way, but it forced a lot of people to get clear,
Oh
to
yeah.
push pause. I have so many clients that came this year that said, like, in June, right after COVID was really a thing, and said, I want what I have right now. That's what I want to create. I want the space that I have. I've
Right.
never had the space, I've never had time, and now I have it.
Isn't
And
that
I
awesome?
do want my business to grow, but I never want to go back to what I was doing.
Right.
It's like, all right, let's dig in. Yeah. And
I talked to a lady today who about she might come on as an attorney in our office, and she was so cute because she was like, "We're not ever going to have to go back to an office, are we?" I was like, "No, we've been virtual for the whole time." I said COVID was a non-issue for us from a that
yeah,
perspective, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I love feeding my chickens during the day," and I thought,
that's amazing.
I was like, "I love that too."
Yeah, I want that for you.
Totally. I'm
Yeah,
like, if everyone could go feed chickens in the middle of the day, work would feel less stressful.
right, right. She's probably a very pleasant human.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. I am so grateful to have had you as my guest today. I cannot tell
me
you. I mean,
too.
Melissa, I could have you every week. I love
Uh,
talking to you.
I love talking to you too. This has been so much fun. And it's just fun to go on tangents and see where the conversation goes. It always goes somewhere fun with you. So,
Absolutely. I love that. Well, and you've helped us so much. Now, how can people reach you if they want to get in touch
yeah.
with you, learn more about your group program, more about your one-on-one coach?
Yeah. They can go. So our website's velocitywork.com, and there's a free masterclass there. There's some things that spell out like how, if you want to get involved somehow you can, but there's also a way to just schedule a call. And I love meeting new people. So if someone's curious and they just want to know more, I am happy to just chat and give you the scoop, and you can make a call from there. But
Awesome.
there's a way to do that on the website.
Thank you so much. Well, we will add that to the show notes and make sure that people have your contact information. And so I really appreciate it, and good luck. And I hope you have a great January.
Thank you. You too. Thanks so much for having me on.
Okay. Bye, Melissa. Thank you.
Bye.